Hi, I'm here at Jung at Harp with Jungian psychoanalyst Kathleen Wiley. I'm Deborah Henson-Conant, also known as Deborah, also known as DHC, and we are here to talk about how do you let yourself change, right? Is that what we said?
That's what we said.
and as we were talking about this, I was saying to Kathleen, okay, so you're a therapist, right? She was like, no, I'm a psychoanalyst. That's what you said, right? I got that right. And I was like, but wait a second, but you're a therapist. And she was like, no. So I wanted to start this conversation off. What is the difference? And I was thinking about this. I was thinking if somebody said to me, so you're a classical musician, and I'd be like, no, I'm not a classical musician. They'd be like, but you play the harp. And I'd be like, yeah, but no. So I figured it's the same kind of conversation. So Kathleen, before we start, in the context of this question, how do we let ourselves change? What's the difference between a therapist and a psychoanalyst and a Jungian psychoanalyst? Are there all these, and maybe different kinds of therapy? Like, how might different people look at this question? And then we can look at it the way that we would look at it.
Yeah, that's it's a great topic. Let's see if I can give a Cliff Notes version. The main difference is the point of reference that we attribute the power of psyche to. So rationally motive therapists, for instance, attribute the power of the ego and how we move in the world to our thoughts, and whether we're having rational thoughts or non-rational thoughts, and how that affects our emotions. Cognitive behavioralist therapists similarly believe that it's all about what we're thinking, that if we change our thinking, then we're going to change what we're doing. Well, both of those things, for instance, have merit, and there are many other different kinds of therapies. But what psychoanalysis across the board, whether it's Freudian, Jungian, Reichian, Adlerian, I mean, there's many different orientations. What they have in common is that we understand that it is the non-rational, automatic, reflexive aspect of our psyche that's called the unconscious that actually is in charge of us. So think about it. Think about how much of your day, and even your getting ready to be here this morning and my getting ready to be here this morning, was just automatic. The unconscious, something in us just kind of took over and drove us. And our ego then said, oh yeah, this is next. But we weren't driving the boat. We like to think we are. We steer the boat with our focus. But the drive and the motor of the boat of our own psyche soul is the larger unconscious. So psychoanalysts know that if we're going to really change, we have to get to what's behind the surface of who we think we are, what's beyond the surface of what we think, what's underneath the various emotions and moods and affects we have, what's behind it. And that is the primary difference between people who work from various other modalities of psychiatry, psychology, various therapies, and people who work with an orientation of psychoanalysis. And there are therapists who aren't fully trained as psychoanalysts who do also believe in the unconscious and work with an eye towards that. They've just not gone through the rigorous intensive training process. But that's the primary difference. And it's really important for us, DHC, because you and I both know sometimes how in our life we've wanted to change something and we have efforted. And if our effort and our trying could have changed it, our setting a goal, our giving ourselves a plan of action, our doing those daily affirmations, it would have happened. But until we connect with whatever the energy source is, which from a Jungian perspective is in the unconscious and is connected to the larger self that we are, that wants us to live fully and abundantly, until we connect with whatever that source is, we're going to stay blocked.
Well, did you say stabilize?
We're going to stay blocked.
Stay blocked. Okay.
And sometimes staying blocked does give us stability, which is why sometimes people don't want to change. That
Yeah,
was a beautiful Freudian slip, by the way.
thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Well, I mean, there's so much that I'm thinking. I mean, first I'm thinking, what are rational thoughts? But before we go there, I brought this up today for a couple of reasons. And one of them is me, what I'm dealing with, just in terms of really wanting to change, and I'm being very noticing that, well, I'm acting from who I think I am, and I'm acting from this universe that I have created, and I can't act outside of that from inside of it. That I've become very aware that I've created my own reality.
Mm-hmm.
And so I'm looking at how does one then shift one's reality when the reality that you've created for yourself doesn't work.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm also thinking about it because I'm doing something very new. I'm doing a 5-day Harp improv challenge. And so I'm doing something new, but it's helping me be aware as the people come into the challenge and tell me why they want to improvise. I'm realizing, just how meaningful being able to express ourselves is, and how so many others are also feeling stuck and caught in their reality, often having to do with their self-expression. And so I'm I'm solving, I'm looking to understand more for myself, and then to also be able to share that as I'm teaching people how to improvise with an instrument. And I think they really combine beautifully.
Mm. Yes, they do. You know what I'm thinking about? In a way, what you're realizing is that with your idea of who you are, you've kind of put yourself in a box, and you're realizing that the box you're in is way too small, that there's something in you energetically with some desire and some imaging about new things that you want to express, but this box, this idea of who you are, isn't big enough to contain it.
You're blowing my mind at the moment.
Okay.
Why, I wonder why I'm not coming up, even though I'm talking. Huh. I wonder if I have something set incorrectly here. Well, let's put us both up. I think that means we're both up today.
Okay.
It's making me think. So I'm a composer, I'm a performer, and I also have an online school, and I'm coaching. And as a composer, I've been working on this one piece my whole life, called The Golden Cage. I love that I've been working on it my whole life, and that I think it's actually going to be produced this fall. We're working on it. And we have new, but anyway, but you made me think it, and it's about a character who's in a cage. It's actually about two characters. It's about a birdman who's been searching his whole life for the ultimate security of birdman mythology, which is this golden cage. That's what they want, this golden cage. And he finally, after his whole life of searching, he finds it. It's everything he ever dreamed of, but with one thing: there's a woman stuck inside of it. And she says that this cage, that this beautiful cage, is a prison. And it's got cement walls, and it's got, iron bars. And he can see that it isn't, but it is. And just before that, she sings a song, and I don't even know. She had sung this song. There's a whole beginning where he happens to land on top of her cage, and she doesn't know it, and her feather comes out and flies, and she grabs this feather and she sees it. And when she sees it, she sings something like, I I can't find it. I used to dream. No, something like this. I'll get it wrong, but I'll sing the words anyway. I used to dream. I dreamt I was in flight. I used to dream. I dreamt of soaring on a starlit night. Now I only dream, I dream of dreams. And the dream is never new. I mean, and there's nothing I can do to change it. Nothing I can say that I haven't said a million times before. Nothing I won't say again and again and again and again and again. Oh, and she sings, nothing's ever new, and there's nothing I can do to change it. I mean, so that's what she's singing. And you're making me think, and I mean, so I know this.
You know the box.
I know the box, and I've known the box, since I was a child, because I started writing this when I was 18 or 19 years old. I saw this as I looked at life, and I thought, is life, what is freedom? Is freedom the freedom to go anywhere, or is freedom the freedom to stay? What is my life going to be about? And I immediately saw these two characters, one of whom was in this cage and one of whom was free but longing for the cage. Mm-hmm. And as I lived my life thinking I was just writing a story, I began to see that I am living those two characters, both of those two characters. And all the longing, all his longing to belong and to be inside, and all her longing and her fear to be out. So how do we get there? I don't know. But that's, you just immediately made me think of that box. So clearly I'm walking around with that box that others can see. I mean, and I'm bringing it out in conversation, and I'm sure we all, can. Take it away.
Well, we do all have our boxes, and sometimes people don't see it, or sometimes they do see it as the golden cage, like the Birdman. But at any given moment in time, you or I in our box may feel like it is the prison with cement walls. So, I want to just say that your song was so beautiful, and it just brought up such a deep sadness in me about how we all limit ourselves without realizing what we're doing. And that in some way, part of the process of letting ourselves change is we have to be able to bear our own sadness and grief of what our choices have done to us. And to be able to bear that without self-recrimination or self-deprecation, or, we have this tendency sometimes when we see these things to really get harsh with ourselves, and that only thwarts the energy. So to be able to see that and feel it, and I don't know what happens in the golden cage, but I hope that at some point the Birdman really is able to hear her. And I don't mean just hear the words, but really hear and know her experience in his heart. And that she at some point is able to know his experience. Because that, from a Jungian psychoanalytic point of view, is how change happens. These two seemingly opposite energies somehow start to talk to one another and inform one another. And I don't mean inform one another intellectually, but inform one another on a feeling level, on a felt sense. And something shifts organically when that happens. And so for all of us, and for the process of change you're in now, it is that being able to get this part of you that already is outside the box in communion with the part of you that's still in the box, and vice versa. But what we tend to do, and what tends to happen because of a lot of fear and because of learned patterns, and for a lot of things, we tend to push the other side away.
Which is exactly what happens in this. I mean, it's interesting.
Yeah.
It's just interesting to see that. I mean, the first thing they do is just like hate each other.
There you go. Yeah. Yeah.
So what I'm beginning to realize that these this is my story. I've told it to myself my whole life. I mean, this is my story that I'm using to work through this change.
Yes.
And I certainly didn't think I would be talking about this story here in this session, but I realized that and I'm realizing also that I'm about to do another workshop called Untangled, which is about working with someone who works with trauma and she helps people. She does it through almost creating a fairy tale of your life and then working through that story. And we're doing the workshop together with music so that the people I work with can do that story with music. And you're making me realize as we talk that is a way to change, is to create. I mean, it almost sounds like you're saying create a new story and then live it or dance it, or maybe I'm coming up with that. I mean, the question here was, yeah, how do we let ourselves change?
Yeah. So, what part of what's happening for you, and this has been unconsciously driven for you since you were 18? The unconsciously driven, meaning there's an energy there that's kept this alive, period. My guess is there are times you've set it aside and then here it comes back.
Right.
Your psyche will not let you let it go. So part of how we change is we continue to stay in relationship to these energies inside of us and find ways to dance with them. I like to say, find ways to play with them. So you're playing with these energies and creating the storyline for the golden cage and putting it to music and putting it in words. So often the expressive arts are a beautiful manifestation of the process of change. And we think we're creating a work of art or a piece of music when in truth it's creating us.
Right. I mean, that was very clear to me as I've worked on the piece over the years. And when I first produced it, in my early 20s, I just couldn't find the ending. I couldn't figure out. I was resisting that these two characters could help each other. I was like, no, she's gonna do it herself. And then there came a time, maybe about 7 years, no, maybe 4 years ago, I guess, when it came to me, there was a moment where, one of the characters just said, and I don't know if I can play this. Let's see, something like, push me, Boris, push me, or what is it? I can't, push me, take me to the edge and show me that I can fly. Let me take the lead of believing I can fly. It took that. I didn't find that, and I didn't find the idea of like, help me, help me.
Right.
I can't do this alone. I couldn't. I couldn't even put that into the play until I got to that point to be able to say that.
Yeah, I mean, again, that's such a beautiful song because it expresses the truth of what we need to change, which is we need the help of that which we have previously despised in our own nature. I mean, that is so Jungian. That's such a premise of Jung psychology and of esoteric spiritual traditions. I mean, it's not just found in Jungian psychoanalysis, but it's found in a lot of the esoteric spiritual traditions that know that we are the whole of it. So in your beautiful composition, the Birdman and this woman are like different sides of the same coin, but it's the same coin. They're the same being, but they've gotten split. And that mechanism happens for us just through the process of socialization. We get taught that certain things are okay and certain things aren't. So you can express this way, but you can't express that way. Or, it's okay to feel this way, but you can't feel that way. And these things just happen. And so part of living the creative life and part of letting ourselves change is we have to be willing to go into relationship with that which we've previously tried to not be in relationship with and ourselves.
Wow.
Yeah. Yeah.
So as you're talking, I'm thinking, what's coming up in my academy and what's in my life. I'm thinking, for me, engaging more in this play
Mm-hmm.
is, and engaging in a different way, because now that it's getting closer and closer to production, it's just like, well, what are the logistics that I have to do, and blah 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 blah. But as we're talking today, I'm thinking, I that's like a marriage that's gone sour. I need to be making love to this piece again. I need to be in that piece. I need to be letting that piece speak to me. I need to be, playing it like I did when I was a child, when I was a kid, when I was first building it, and it was speaking to me. And when truly, the characters were, it was, I literally just called them A and B, and they really were two sides of me. And then they became Alpha and Beta, and then they became Althea and Boris, and they differentiated and became, real characters. And I'm thinking about when I do this workshop, the Untangled workshop, that, one of the things that I need to say to people, and could say to anybody right now, is that you can find something that you love the sound of, or that you love the feeling of. If it's a movement. And I used to feel that it was cheating. Like, if I found something that I loved, oh my God, that feels beautiful, I would be like, it's cheating to do that over and over again. Or if I found a harmony, that I loved, I would feel like, well, okay, play it once and then go on to something else. And what I'm realizing now is, no, 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 not at all. Stay. Let that inform you. Let that be you. Let that change you.
And again, you're practicing what, Jungian analysis and all psychoanalysis are what are referred to as depth, DEPTH psychology, depth. We go down into the depths. And so what you're saying you realized is when you found a chord progression or harmony that was touching you, instead of quickly moving on to find the next one, to just really let it take you into the depths of what it was saying to you and what it might say to the listener. And that depth took you into a whole reservoir, more expanded, open reservoir. And this is actually how the golden cage becomes a cage of freedom, that we let ourselves drop down into the depths of our own nature, the golden cage of our own soul, where in the depths we're connected to everything. And we can bring up that which is within us in that expression that is truly unique to us and our gift to the world. So it becomes the principle of right limitation, and the Western mystery tradition that preserves some of the early teachings when the psychological and spiritual worlds were trying to inform one another, talks about the principle of right limitation. And right limitation means at any given moment in time, I am in the exact form, the golden cage, that best expresses the wholeness of who I am in that moment. Because everything has to be in a form. There's got to be a chord progression. There's got to be a harmonic progression in your compositions. Right. It may change, but you then got to segue to it. And so we've got to have form. I'm thinking now of the golden cage as a form. So forms are not bad. And this is what the Birdman had: unlimited expansiveness. So he couldn't find himself because he needed containment. And for him, the golden cage would be that containment of his essence.
I'm just listening. Yeah. Well, I'm thinking about that, and I'm thinking, I mean, I always say structure is freedom. Structure meaning form.
Mm-hmm.
And I just had a session with my students earlier this week, and I was saying, okay, you just looked at this piece. We were looking at pieces from my my big work, Invention and Alchemy, and I'm breaking them down, deconstructing them, so that they could then use those structures, those forms. And I was like, okay, what's the form of this? And they were like, ABA, Rondo, and then someone was like, well, you did this, and then you did this, and then it was like, no, what are the gestures? Just what are the gestures of it? And finally finally someone said, I know, talk, play, play a melody, do something different than play a melody. And I was like, yes, that's it. That's the form. That's the form that gives you freedom,
Mm-hmm.
because it is open to infinite expression.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't define the expression, but it gives form to it. But it took a lot to get us down from all the, well, this is what it should be, like this is a classical form, and also down through the specifics to get to like, this is something anyone could do.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And then we all did it on a silly song, just so that we could go through the process. And as you said, the limitation of, this form, you said like this form is the form that is it I think it's the form that I can express at this level of spiritual development, but that the form could be very different. My form and the form of my life can be different if I had a different matrix or something, a different.
I think I'm following what you're saying. At any given moment in time, our life is the best expression we're able to do, and it is defined by the energies of our psyche that we can consciously relate to at any given moment in time.
Right. So we keep
So as we expand,
okay.
as we integrate other energies, then our capacities increase. So it's like the cage gets bigger, would be to go like the golden cage becomes bigger, and that we begin. I'm thinking back on something you said in the beginning that may seem contradictory to what I just said, but it really isn't. And so I want to just circle back for a minute and pick it back up because it's important. Jung said this, and also Albert Einstein had a version of it. But Jung said, you cannot resolve a problem in the same state of consciousness in which it was created. And Einstein had a version, you've got to get above it. You've got to get outside of that paradigm. And what I understand that to mean psychologically and spiritually is that if we're caught in too small of a box, where parts of ourself, our emotions, our longings, our desires don't have a place, then we have to get outside of the ruling paradigm of that box to get into a bigger box, a bigger expansion. Right. And the word box here may have negative connotations. So let's just say we're getting into that larger self, because that's really what it is. And so to me, it's not so much about, we can't leave that behind, but we grow beyond it. It's like cracks open.
It's like the chambered nautilus. There's a poem by Oliver Wendell Holmes, and I don't know the whole poem, and I'll say it wrong, but build me more stately mansions, oh my soul, as the seasons roll, so that I may be vaulted by a chamber, greater, until I finally, am in the unending sea.
Beautiful. Yeah, that's beautiful. Yeah.
So how do we do that? Like, what are, I mean, okay, so I'm thinking one thing that I realized this morning is, as I find something I love, whether it's a chord progression or a song, play it until it breaks my heart, and play it until it breaks my heart over and over and over and over again. And my teacher, Tony, used to describe this as you must be a victim of your own work. And I never understood what he meant, but I'm starting to understand. And so I would say for people who are listening, to have the courage to find, like if you're a musician, to find that one thing you love. And I know people have one thing they love. It might be in a piece, but we're embarrassed to play it over and over and over and over and over again, the same thing. And yet that is the doorway. That is the doorway to the greater chamber, that it will open for us. I was at a beautiful, beautiful presentation by a dancer, and she was talking about Emily Dickinson. I won't say this right either, but Emily Dickinson said, when the top of my head is blown off, I know that I have read poetry. Mm-hmm. And that this happens. It often happens when we're alone, and yet it is something that makes us feel so connected. In that moment, we feel completely connected through this thing. So I would say, and this comes out of improvisation. I mean, even if you're playing a piece of music that's written, if you love it, and you can take that part that speaks to your soul, and you don't have to wait for it. You can take it and just play it over and over and over again. That, and then if we can build a story to that as well, if we can tell our story to that as well, that's what I would say. And these are the things that I will be teaching, because I know that it's, one thing to say it and try it, and then it's also really helpful to have somebody guiding you through it.
Yeah. And, I think what you're saying there, that's such an important part of letting ourselves change, is we have to be willing to be in the discomfort of not knowing, the discomfort of the messiness, which you often say to your students. We have to be able to open up to that birthing is a messy process. And that loss is also a part of changing. So that what I said was that beautiful Freudian slip in the moment where you said stabilize, that somewhere that we sometimes hold on to being in the cage because it's a known stability. It's predictable. We've been in it so long, we know what's going to happen.
Right.
And there is, in an odd kind of way, a part of us that may feel safe in that.
Of course, yeah.
Yeah. And so that part of what we have to do is be willing to risk and develop our sense of self enough that we can tolerate the discomfort and anxiety of the unknown.
That makes sense to me. And I often don't know how to do that unless I'm coming in from my body. So as you're speaking, I'm thinking, okay, how can I practice being okay, being unbalanced, and literally, I mean, I'm just gonna practice. I mean, I may be falling onto my bed or something, but to start informing myself about what it means to be unbalanced, and to allow that.
And to when I present, I always present barefooted, no matter how many people are in the audience. And this past weekend, I presented virtually to the Hagen Institute Dream Intensive, and one of the people asked virtually, "Are you barefooted?" Because they've seen me present so many times in person. But one of the reasons that I present barefooted is being barefooted literally gives my feet contact with the earth vis-a-vis the floor. So it helps to ground me, because in the moment I'm presenting, I'm so much in the flux of the energy that I'm picking up in the room, of the thoughts that I've prepared, and of just being with the flow to let what needs to come out. And that requires a destabilizing of my ego sense of being in control, and I know exactly what's going to happen. I never know what's going to happen. But I've learned to trust that I can keep enough rootedness in my deeper being through my body, with my feet literally touching the floor, that I can then be in relationship with that flux, the lack of stability. And I believe this is something of what the form, the structures of music give the true musician, is that they somehow give them a way to stay rooted to the being of
so that you can fly, so that you can be free with them. That's in their best. That's what structures do. And that's why having simple structures, having structures that are easily comprehensible to your mind. And, that will change. Like as I learned jazz, the structure of a blues is completely, I know where I am all the time. And so I can be free and I can let go.
Yeah.
And when we're first learning, it's good to stay with very, very small forms so that we can always know where we can go back so that we do feel that freedom. So that's another thing for me to think about. Could I build that into that sense of knowing that I don't maybe have capacity for the complexity that I'm expecting of myself now, and maybe I can create something simpler. Not necessarily in music, but in the other parts of my life that I'm want to be open to change. Because when we find that form that supports us, like your being barefoot supports you, that then gives you the freedom to be to find all the places and go to all the places and open the places for others that you can't if you're trying to maintain control.
Exactly. It's so well said. And the same is true when we want to change. If we're trying to orchestrate it and know exactly how it's going to happen and what it's going to look like, then we are probably somewhere getting ourselves out of the flow of how it can happen. So, it's both and. It's like we've got to have that sense of ego and being, I don't even want to say control, but awareness and focus and attention to kind of channel. But we also have to have a big enough conduit to let the energy flow as it needs to. And I had this fantasy that the ending of your golden cage would be a larger cage that always had the door open where both the Birdman and the woman could come and go as they needed. And
that is, it isn't a larger cage, but it does become once. I mean, she says, take the bars and we'll throw them away forever, because because what she says is that it's not the cage that's the trap. It's when you lock yourself inside. That is what changes it. But otherwise, it's this beautiful thing that if you can come and go in it.
Yeah.
It would be cool if it got bigger too. Or perhaps just more translucent. But I don't have to worry about that. I'm not the director. I'm just the creator. Wow, Kathleen, one of the things I love about this particular session is I'm coming away with a sense of what I want to do and a sense of what others can do to be open to change, but not with a set and dried, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do this, but a sense that I will find a form that I love and that I can inform myself through what I've learned through music about how to open to change, open to creativity, open to let the music speak to me and change me. And now I'm going to start looking for that in other parts of my life as well.
Beautiful. Yeah. Beautiful.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate this. I'm going to stop the recording, but I'm going to then try to go to Facebook and see if there's questions. And I know you probably have to leave really soon as well. But let me just say thank you. As I always, whenever I speak to you, I remember that moment in your car when I thought, this is a conversation I want to keep having. And I'm just so grateful that we are having it now and it keeps happening.
Yes. Yeah.
Visit jungatharp.com for show notes, contact links, and to follow the ongoing conversation. That's Jung, as in Carl Jung, the famous psychoanalyst, and harp, as in the many-stringed instrument.